Welcome back in. There are renewed calls now for police reform in the wake of the Tyre Nichols case in Memphis, and his is just the latest case, caught on camera for the world to see, sparking protests around our country. So how can our nation move forward? Let's bring in the Honorable Paul E. Johnson. He's the former mayor of Phoenix and the author of the book Addictive Ideologies: Finding Meaning and Agency When Politics Fail You. Mr. Johnson, thank you for joining us.
Oh, Katie, thanks for having me.
So I want to start with, you were serving as mayor of Phoenix from 1990 to 1994, is that right?
That's correct.
So you were mayor when the country saw Rodney King get beaten and we saw protests erupt in Los Angeles. I'm not sure that it happened the same way across the country as we see now as protests erupt when we see these awful moments of police caught on camera with brutality. But what was it like in your city on that day and at that time?
You know, at the time we had a strike force also called the SWAT squad. And I recall when the night that it happened, I went to go down to the streets. I went through the police department, and I remember seeing all these police officers in the full regalia. They were pumped up, excited, nervous, a bit scared about what was going to happen. And it was just obvious to me that a problem was going to happen. Now, I had a fairly good relationship with the Black Ministerial Alliance. I called a couple of the ministers, and I just asked them, I said, hey, please don't do a demonstration tonight. Don't march tonight. If you'll wait 2 or 3 days, I will march with you. Fortunately, there was some good leadership there. Our concern, I think their concern was that some kid was going to end up getting killed that didn't need to. And 3 days later, I did march with them. But it clearly, racism and race relationships between police departments and neighborhoods is something that's not new in this country.
I ask you because now we have much more prominent and much more often we see police body camera footage. But even with that, when the country watches these incidents over and over again, they protest in response, sometimes for days on end. I mean, it's a story that has been written and read numerous times, going all the way back to Rodney King, where we were lucky enough, I guess, to be able to see that footage from somebody who captured it from afar, not from body cam footage. But this keeps happening. And I guess my question to you is, there are a lot of equity players involved here, but in order to have that leadership, in order to get something done, who is the one responsible for leading the charge here? Because with so many voices, every time this happens, there's not 1 or 2 individuals who seem to be the leaders in getting something done. Who should we look to?
I'm very doubtful, and what I've experienced, to believe that this is going to get fixed at the federal level, that President Trump or President Biden is going to actually be able to fix this. Is going to be a very, very local issue. You know, one thing that came out of this that we saw is that this was not an act of racism. And that's clear. And I think sometimes that the usage of it as being a racist event actually clouds the bigger issue. Back in the 1970s, there was a police officer named Frank Serpico that ended up identifying a bunch of corruption that was going on amongst New York police officers. He disclosed that and then ended up being shot in the face. And some people allege that it was the other officers who did that. Regardless, the Serpico effect on police departments throughout the country was to weed out corruption. They really began to focus on it. Well, the way that they did that is they removed police officers from neighborhoods. They saw those relationships as being a corrupting influence. Now, as they did that, departments began to become more separated from those neighborhoods, and they didn't know the people who lived inside of them. That began to create this ability for both sides to objectify one another. One of the things that happened during the time I was mayor, the Clinton administration passed a neighborhood-based bill to put some money back into local neighborhood policing. Now, overwhelmingly, we did a trial program that went into our central city. That program brought our police officers in. We had communication with the neighborhoods that were there. They helped us identify the issues that they were concerned about. And instead of it being the police department deciding how to act or the neighborhood deciding how to act, it was a partnership that helped us determine how to act. Now, we reduced crime in that period of time by about 30%, but the relationship between neighborhoods, race, and the police department was definitely improved in that area. And it's because they knew one another. They quit objectifying the other person.
Well, there certainly is a bit of an argument here that racism was involved and that racism has become so institutionalized in policing that even with 5 black officers attacking a black man, it is part of what has become institutionalized in our system. But before we let you go, because you and I are talking about it just like this, in the book, Addictive Ideologies, you talk about how we can maybe move forward and have this discussion when folks are on 2 very different sides here. How do we begin to talk about this and actually get something done?
Well, there's a lot in the book that talks about what's going on with the divisions that exist in our country, you know, between the alt-right on one side, the woke left on the other, identity politics that's taking place, people beginning to see one another as being a part of a group. The only way that you can fix this is to try to restore agency. And you're going to restore agency at a very, very local level by building bridges between groups, by building bridges between police officers, neighborhoods, groups that are Black, Hispanic, Asian. And as you build those ties, they begin to gain an emotional attachment to the people. And that changes how police officers act. It also changes how neighbors act. It's the only way out of this. We're not going to solve this by thinking that the federal government's going to solve it. We're going to solve this at a very, very local level with us all agreeing that there's some role that we play in individual responsibility to make this problem better.
A lot of work to be done at the local level and at the federal level. Mr. Johnson, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And good luck talking about your book, Addictive Ideologies. We look forward to passing it around the newsroom here and having you back soon.
Thank you.